Rabbi Sarna, it is really incredible to have you here. I just want to explain to all of our students who we have the privilege of meeting with here today. Rabbi Yehuda Sarna serves as the University Chaplain and Executive Director at the Brompton Center for Jewish Student Life at New York University. He is a Senior Fellow at the Of Many Institute for Multi-Faith Leadership at NYU, where he designs educational experiences and curricula to train the next generation in interfaith action. Rabbi Sarna, of note today, is, of course, the Chief Rabbi of the United Arab Emirates, and he is speaking to us today from his hotel room in Dubai. Very busy right now. I should also point out, probably most important in his bio is that he is the father of graduate Batya Sarna and current students Ma'ayan and Moshe Sarna. That's the most important part of your bio, I imagine, Rabbi Sarna. But it's really a pleasure to have you here today, and really thank you for joining us. I get started. I know your time's really of the essence here, and I'm just so grateful that you took the time to speak with us while you're in Dubai. Can you tell us a little bit about your role as the Chief Rabbi of the United Arab Emirates?
Sure. So I started in this role in February of 2019. There was a small Jewish community that I got to know here because NYU has had a campus in Abu Dhabi, a neighboring emirate, so like state, neighboring state to Dubai. And I've been coming here since 2010. But then I was coming once or twice a year to help interview the high school students when they were coming to try to gain admission to NYU Abu Dhabi, which is a 4-year college. And then from 2015, I learned that there was a Jewish community that had started having regular minyanim on Shabbat. There had been something of a community since the mid-2000s, but really the main time they gathered was around Chagim. But since 2015, consistent minyan on Shabbat in people's homes. And so I began advising them, helping them in any way that I could. And in 2019, February, they asked me if I could serve as the kind of first chief rabbi. And really my function was, I'd come and visit every other month, roughly. And it was coming at a time when the Jewish community, even though when it started, it was very private, and many people, the location was unknown, where the place of meetings were, et cetera. It was very, very private. But already in 2019, which the UAE called a year of tolerance, that is a year focused on the acceptance of religious minorities, and there was a sense that the Jewish community would become more visible. They wanted to have a faith leader who could represent them in, government fora, interfaith fora, et cetera, things like that. And because I work at NYU and I have the Abu Dhabi connection, also I'm familiar in speaking in interfaith settings and also representing Jews of multiple denominations. I began to work with them, and what happened pretty quickly in retrospect is once the Jewish community appointed me, then I began receiving invitations from many different government offices or ambassadors to come and engage with them or together with them in broader forums. They asked me to speak at the UN at an event for about 50 ambassadors from Muslim countries. They asked me to serve on a task force, really like a research group on how to combat violent extremism through arts and culture. And that was a group that met over 3 weekends over the course of the year: artists, psychologists, religious leaders, people who work in security, people who've worked in jails or in prisons with former ISIS members. And so it basically starting to get involved on a certain level in government-sponsored programs. I'm not paid for by the government. I don't work for the government. But nevertheless, I do have a tremendous amount of respect for the open vision, the future orientation that they have. And I'm seeking to help in ways that I can.
That's incredible. I mean, I could probably go for, hours and hours asking this, but I know you're time is of the essence, as I said before. I'm curious, now that the Abraham Accords have been signed, I think you were there at first of all, were you there at the White House? Do you have any insight about how that worked? And also,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So I was at the White House, and then that night we got on a plane and we came to the UAE. And this trip I also brought with me, invited to come with me, several leaders from UJ Federation of New York, as well as the CEO and president of the Jewish Federations of North America. That's the umbrella group that represents, not just the Federation in New York, but all 146 federations across the country and Canada. And we've been running nonstop, meetings with different ministers in the government. But because of Corona, we've had to be limited to Dubai. Abu Dhabi has tougher standards when it comes to coronavirus. So we were able to come to Dubai. We had to get our Corona tests beforehand, and so we met with the Minister of Youth, very inspiring personality. She became minister when she was 22. Was the youngest minister in any government in the world, but I went to NYU Abu Dhabi, graduated, was a Rhodes Scholar. Brilliant person. I hope at some point for SAR students to be able to interact with her. Her name is Shama Al-Masroor. And then also we met with someone who's the Minister of Cabinet Affairs, so very close to the ruler of Dubai, and some prominent business people and others, just to get a sense of, in the future, if as other Jewish groups are going to come, what would be, what it would look like, but particularly like what role can American Jews have in supporting the Abraham Accord and fostering this, building the bridges.
So I guess I'd ask, what's something, listen, we've seen the news, we know basically how the Abraham Accords have been designed to normalize relations between Israel, the UAE, as well as Bahrain. What's something you think SAR students should know about the Abraham Accords they may not realize?
I think the key to understanding the Abraham Accords is looking at a map. And to be honest, I before I went to the UAE, I couldn't have pointed to the UAE on a map. And so just beginning to look at the map of the Arabian Peninsula and to see where is Mecca, where is Medina, and where is Saudi Arabia? What's its population? How was the UAE formed? What is Oman? Why is what's the relationship between Qatar and the UAE? I mean, just beginning to understand the regional politics and dynamics around Israel, actually very close to Israel, but somehow many people have never really seen that part, but it is very, very close, but we've never really seen that part, and now many people, and I think it's a responsibility, are saying, hey, it's time to learn that map and to just the basic demographics. And once you do that, you understand that actually from a political standpoint, and I'm not a political analyst, I'm just sharing with you something that you could read in other places, but the UAE and Israel in many ways are in a similar political position. They are both concerned about the United States withdrawing from interest from the region. They're concerned about Iran. They're concerned about ISIS. They're concerned about Al Qaeda. They're concerned about the Muslim Brotherhood or Hamas, and they also have very, optimistic visions of the future, where they want to enable their youth to prosper, to have great jobs, and to be part of the global economy. And in some ways, they have complementary economies. UAE and Israel, roughly the same size in terms of population. Citizenship question in both countries is complex, but roughly 10 to 12 million people living in each, and I think it's not just the shared enemies, but it's really the shared vision of the future. They both want prosperous, open societies, and that's really what's bringing them together.
Very exciting. We're really excited. Can you imagine, like at some point, I mean, I see that knowing that you are in Dubai now, do you imagine that this is going to be kind of like a very different sort of setup than the relations that now exist between, like, let's say, sort of cold pieces that may exist between Egypt and Jordan, where you don't really have a lot of Jews and Israelis who are traveling to those places, and doesn't feel like there's an exchange. But you see that being different here in the Abraham Accords.
Totally different. I mean, totally different. First of all, there's no history of conflict,
Mm-hmm.
of violence, and then what you have in the DNA of the UAE is this kind of hospitality, like radical hospitality. Everybody is extremely welcoming and open, and you land here and you feel like you're at home. Actually, there's an interview I did for not just for with a social media person, really, not someone who has a huge following, really very modest. But there's one clip of it that went viral specifically among Emiratis, which was the asked me, sorry, but the interviewer asked me, what challenge do you think Israelis are going to have visiting the UAE? And I said they're not going to want to leave. And every Emirati who sees that, bursts out in laughter and loves that. But it loves it because it's an affirmation of how welcoming the country that they've built is. So undoubtedly a warm peace, undoubtedly a warm peace, and unquestionably different than Egypt and Jordan. The societies are very different. The society, so it's, I'm very excited for what.
All right, listen, I'd love to maybe at some point, maybe perhaps I can go. I'd love to check out the Emirates one day in the near future. Hopefully, with you, Rabbi Sarna, and daven in your shul.
Yeah,
I guess what
I'll let you know, Rabbi Cole, the next time I'm going. Then
yeah. If I know, listen, it's I really appreciate your taking the time here today. It's really exciting to meet with you about this. We look forward when you return. If I don't know if any of the if Maayan or Moshe are in the background anywhere and they want to wave to their classmates, they're welcome to do so. But I just want to. Oh, there's Moshe. Oh, there they are.
I don't know if they'll want to. I don't know if they'll want to,
Okay. Okay, guys. We'll see you back in school on Tuesday, or when are we going to be? Oh, I know Moshe. Tuesday's Zooming. I don't know. We'll see. But what I understand is that the infection rate in Dubai is low, and that you are not required to quarantine when you return. Is that correct, Rabbi Sarna?
That is correct. Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, unlike some other countries, where the infection rate is in fact lower, and they do not need to quarantine.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. All right, really, thank you very much for offering the insight. We look forward to hearing even more insight from you when you return. And thank you so much. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Take care.